County Public Library's Meet the Author series. I'm Denise Ozier. Tonight we are honored to host Joshua Brandon and William Shatner and their book, Boldly Go, Reflections on the Life of Awe and Wonder is the title of the new book. And Duffy Dixon is our moderator. Duffy is a multiple Emmy award-winning communications and media specialist. Duffy is a familiar face to many of you in Metro Atlanta. She was an on-air reporter for 11 Alive News for more than a decade, and she is frequently sought after as an MC and moderator for various events. As the Director of Marketing and Communications for the Gwinnett County Public Library System, she draws from her 27 years as a television news reporter to craft compelling stories about all the people who have benefit from the many library services and programs available at Gwinnett County Public Library. Thank you, Duffy.
Thank you so much, Denise. And this is just a thrill. I will just say it right off the bat that we are so thrilled to have you here, both William Shatner and, of course, his co-writer, Joshua Brandon. Now, this feels sort of surreal that I'm going to introduce William Shatner, because if you don't know who he is, I don't know where you've been. Maybe on another planet, correct? Maybe with no access to anything in this world. But William Shatner is the author of 9 Star Trek novels, including the New York Times bestseller, The Ashes of Eden, and The Return. He is also the author of several nonfiction books, including Get a Life, and I'm working on that. In addition to his role as Captain James T. Kirk, he starred as Denny Crane on the hit TV series David E. Kelley's Boston Legal, a role for which he won 2 Emmy Awards and a Golden Globe. Well, you know what? There's so much more to this man, but if you want to find out more, visit williamshatner.com. Joshua Brandon is also joining us. He is Mr. Shatner's co-author. Now, Joshua is a director, a producer, and a writer whose credits include, but are not limited to, CBS's Friend Me, Sci-Fi's Haven, Fox's Houdini and Doyle, and just released out on Showtime is the feature film 1,000 Little Cuts. Joshua, that is now on my list to watch. I thought it had not come out yet, so I've been waiting for it. I'm very excited. Thank you both, gentlemen, for joining us so much. We are just thrilled to have you. Now, I guess the first thing I want to ask is, William Shatner, Joshua, you are both outstanding individuals on your own. How did this collaboration happen?
Joshua, why don't you answer that?
Well, so much of this book is about the interconnectivity of all things. And Bill and I found each other kind of 3 or 4 times before we wrote this book, just in passing. Bill was on a TV series on CBS called Shit My Dad Says, and the man who played his son was one of my best friends, Jonathan Sadowski, and he brought me backstage when I was there actually with my mother, who's from Montreal, where Bill is from, so it's all starting to already place itself together, and we got to say hello very briefly, and then a few years later, I was writing on the show Haven for Sci-Fi, and Bill did the last 4 episodes as our big guest star at the end of the show. And so we met very briefly again then. And then years later, I just happened to remember his assistant's email, and I reached out and I said, I have the rumblings of an idea for a book that I think might interest Mr. Shatner. Is anyone taking pictures? And quick as a flash, Kathleen wrote back to me and said, I spoke to Bill, he wants to call you tomorrow. And so the next day, there I was on the phone with Bill, and I'm pitching my little heart out. Here's what I think you can do. You can pass on all of this wisdom to everyone. You can tell them about the pitfalls of your career and how you keep climbing up the mountain. And then there was this long pause, and then Bill said with a lot of emphasis, I don't have any wisdom to give to anyone else. I can only tell you what works for me. And so I thought, I've blown it. But then he starts putting all of these pieces together, and he says, what gets me going, what keeps me going is recognizing these moments in the universe and just being in awe of them and being in the moment with everything in your surroundings. And he relayed this great story about driving across a freeway in Canada and seeing the arm of an apple tree, the orchard, just sort of hanging over the freeway, and then kind of pulled over his car, got out, picked the apple, and bit into it. And he can still taste the juice rolling down his throat, can still hear the crack of the skin of the apple. It had reached its perfect maturation point. And I'm just listening to all of this, kind of having an out-of-body experience. And I said, geez, I'd read that book. And so that's kind of how we found each other. And here we are about a year later, and we're very proud of it.
So here is the book, of course. Oh, see, I'm on a blur, so you can't even see. There it is. So I have read it, and it was great. It was very, I think, in this day and time, it was very inspiring, which I think we all could use a little of that. And I'm just going to read the first line of the whole book in case those on here haven't read it, but I'm pretty sure they have. Signing up for this event, they all got a copy of this. But knowledge feeds me. It's as necessary to my existence as oxygen. It thrills me. So, Mr. Shatner, you have lived an incredible life. I mean, I think everybody would agree with that. I think you would agree with that. I think in this book, you talk about that. You are very, it struck me as you are very aware of how much you've experienced, and yet you're still in awe, which is a huge thing. I mean, there are few people who've done as much as you have and are still thrilled and excited, and there's still things you want to do. But, being a library system, we believe, learning never stops. How has that mindset fueled you to get up out of bed every day? I mean, you've pretty much seen it all, done it all. And you I mean, according to this book, you wake up and still curious and have things.
I'm curious as to whether I can get out of bed. That's my opening curiosity. Can I make it tonight, this morning? You talk about, interesting life, and yeah, it's interesting, but I just think of it as I dawdle along and something comes along and I say, okay, and try to do that and try and do this. But mostly come home and be with my wife and the kids and the dogs. And it's just like an ordinary life. I mean, and then so get a call, would you like to go swim with 18-foot tiger sharks? Oh, that's a good idea. And I'll go down there, or you compete in a very taxing horse show and do something good. Really, do something good with the horse, because everybody's tense in a horse show, including the horse. And these horses you don't want to override. You got to. I've taken helicopter lessons, and you can't over control the helicopter, because what happens if you start to over control the helicopter? It starts to sway. So now you're trying to stop it from swaying, and you increase it, and that's when the instructor steps in and he does something magical. That's the same with a horse. You've got to do minimal. You've got to be thinking more than doing. And it's a really interesting lesson for everything about thinking rather than be doing, and allow your thoughts to motivate you and to send you into some kind of action rather than premeditating. Although, having said that, premeditation is good too. Planning is extremely important. So somewhere in between is my advice.
So that's a hard thing, especially with horses, whether you have experience with them or not. It's a lot about trust. It's a lot about knowing you're not in control of everything. Do you think that's something that came to you later in life? Do you feel like you had years where it was, I gotta run and gun, I gotta make it happen? Do you feel like you're at a place in your life where, like, you know what? It is what it is, or I'll make the best of it. I mean, you seem to be in a very balanced place. Have you always been this balanced?
I don't think so. No, I mean, I hate people to do that. I mean, I'm going to tell you what I mean. I can't stand that. Why did I do that? I mean, I haven't even explained myself yet. A balanced place. Well, I don't know whether you need to be balanced. I think you should be overwrought. I think you should be unbalanced. I think if you're balanced and you're there, you're going to get a gold watch at retirement, and that's the end of it. No, you want to be unbalanced. You want to yearn to do something and go in that direction and make a mistake. And then you're really up against it, so you have to work even harder. It's there's no there's no calculation involved in your fate. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if I do this. I can't hear people in show business saying, "Well, I'm making a career move." A career move? What is that? What's a career move? Uh, and so a lot of it is spontaneous. A lot of it's by intuition. A lot of it is absorbing, being there. Nobody, and realizing that the only way you're going to learn what you shouldn't have done is by making a mistake.
So that leads us to the title of this book, Boldly Go. So that can be taken a lot of ways. So I want each of you, was this a group decision on deciding on that title? Was that where the starting point? Was that something you came to? And what does it mean?
She said both, Josh.
Yes.
We're getting deep right away.
Um, we were thinking about a phrase that comes up a lot when you spend as much time with Mr. Shatner as I have, is awe and wonder. And it's something that he and his wife talk about as well. It's just experiencing the awe and wonder, the magic of the world, whether it's in nature or communicating with friends or spending time with your animals. And we always knew that had to play a part in the title somewhere. And we Bill probably knew, but I didn't know. When we started writing this book, I had no idea that he was going to go into space. But
Really?
that came around during the writing of the book, and there had been, and it's something that Bill details in the pages. There'd been talk about it, then it went away because of COVID, and then somebody else was going to do it, and then it eventually happened. And from that, the publishers basically said to us, you have such an opportunity here to use this reference, because Bill just boldly went into space, or went boldly, if you want to use the correct grammatical version. So I think that's basically how it came up. But it was, and Bill can shed more light on this, the awe and wonder was always going to be there, because that's everything that he was communicating.
Well, the book is, I hope, about the awe and wonder of nature and our connection with it, and how it may not be coincidence that things happen, because there is literally this electricity that permeates the universe, the vibration, and if we're in vibration with it, are we in conjunction with the universe, and the things we think are happenstance aren't happenstance, and and there's no such thing as coincidence, so that all these things coming together. I i jousted with going up there. I wanted to go to be the first, and then they were second. I'm not going to go. Okay, I'll go. And then I went up, and I didn't know what was going to happen. And certainly I was taken completely by surprise, and looked at the universe. I looked up and I saw this blackness, and I looked back and I saw the planet, and I saw the teeny little rock that we live on. And then when I landed, I was overwhelmed by emotion, and I didn't know what it was. And it took me hours to realize that I was in grief for the world. And I've been an ecologist, if you will, for all these years since I read Rachel Carson's book, The Silent Spring, and it took her message to heart, and has been pursuing that, talking about it ever since, and watching the world become more and more, descend further and further into the things that were forecast. And then I come back down to space, and I think the 5.8 billion years of evolution has brought about this extraordinary, beautiful planet, which is so small. It's a piece of sand, it's a grain of sand in the desert. And we, on this little tiny rock, are these little tiny entities that are on the rock. So how small are we? How negligible is it all?
And how brief it is.
Well, brief, yes, but
Yeah.
we are non-entities. The Earth is a non-entity. The sun is really not very big. The solar system, the constellation, the Milky Way is just an average of billions of its kind. I thought we're nothing. And then I thought, my God, wait a minute. We've been gifted with awareness, that we're aware we're nothing. And being aware we're nothing, we can put ourselves, we have the manners to put ourselves in the right proportion. And then the last of that thought was when we made a documentary of that whole thing, and I was watching it for the first time in a crowd. I was talking to them, and I saw Jeff Bezos hug me, and I thought, that's the final thing, love. We've got awareness, and we've got this kind of love. We're not as insignificant as it may seem. We're witness to the awe and majesty of the universe. You were going to say?
I was just going to say it's one thing to do a show early on in your career about space and what that may look like, but then to be able to go in and, as you say, look back and see it. Does it give you, it sounds like it gives you, well, a lot of things, but perspective.
No, that was fiction all those years ago. This was heavy G's, weightlessness that's indescribable, and great grief, and trying to figure out what I was thinking. No, the Star Trek had nothing to do with anything, except
Yeah.
that the celebrity it gave me was allowed me to go up on that trip.
Fiction over facts, which I love how you describe that whole experience. I think it's one of the best parts of the book. I will say that, you talked earlier about horses and you have a great love for animals. And I think that goes in line with your whole idea of, being in sync with this world. What do you think animals have given to you, taught you? And what would you say to people? It can be, I know you are fond of many animals, horses you mentioned, but also dogs. Tell me a
Horses and
little bit
dogs.
about that. And have you done that your whole life? Have you had that connection your whole life?
Yeah, when I was growing up, I wasn't allowed to have a dog. They didn't, dirty they're going to dirty the carpets. So the moment I had any independence, I got Dobermans, and I've had nothing but Dobermans ever since. The animals, and I guess it doesn't matter what kind of an animal. I struck up a friendship with a guy who had a pet as a snake. Thinking they had the snake, and yet those beady eyes looking at you, and it wound its way around his arm, and I'm looking at it. In fact, he gave it to me to hold, and it was a poisonous snake, and I'm looking at it. How close can I bring it? And then I remember they can spit, and they get in your eyes. The poison is in your eyes. You go blind. So, what is the central fact of all that is the need to give and take affection, love, and the need to feel part of that love. And those people who are not loved by human beings seek it out somewhere else. Whether you've ever been acquainted with addiction, but that addiction for a lot of people is their best friend. That comforts them like nothing else. whereas horses and dogs and family, of course, family, are the antidote to all that. We're born alone. We essentially are alone our lives, and we die alone. I wrote a song about it, and it's out there. It's not in Bill, which is an album that you can get on Spotify, and it's
Right.
not in the concert that I gave at the Kennedy Center. So it's lying there, ready to be used again. But it's loneliness. It's all about loneliness, and how what I've just said is the basis of the song.
Well, Joshua, I think we just came up with your next project with Bill. Let's get that to the people.
Oh, we've got ideas.
For you, Joshua, obviously, did you know sort of this kindred spirit that you would have with him? And I guess hearing him, I want to read a couple of these comments to you because we do a lot of these, and this is not, oh, there goes my pen. This is not something we hear a lot. Just listen to this. Love this and this book. Bill is my spirit animal. Powerful thoughts. Love, absolutely. Amazing insights. Wish more people thought in the same line. Extremely intellectual. Really down to earth guy speaking knowledge. So simply and awe-inspiring at the same time. This is amazing. I really feel like COVID sort of gave us a gift, whether we wanted it or not, which is we all crave sort of a deeper intimacy with people. We had to go without it. And I think we all learned in harsh realities sometimes how much people really need people. We need each other. So for you, Joshua, what has this friendship, what has this partnership meant to you?
Well, so much. I mean, but I'd like to answer it just in terms not of the William Shatner that I grew up watching on TV, but just the man that I've come to know, and he inspires me. I think I wrote in the acknowledgements, he's probably forgotten more on every subject ever spoken than I will ever know, and sometimes it's tough to keep up with him. I remember we were having a discussion about some big themes, and he got on a great tear, and he said, well, you must remember, Lagrange and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, Lagrange, the ZZ Top song. And I thought I've got it. He's like, no, Lagrange, the mathematician in 1700 and blah blah, he discovered this. And I'm like, whoa. So just the excitement that he feels for knowledge and attaining it, and honestly, the fact that he would even entertain the idea of working with this kid from Australia who has no business being where he is, but he's open to that because he likes to approach the world with a say yes attitude, and that's the only reason I'm here. So it's been a really wonderful experience, and just little things like one of the best I remember is I was telling him about my wife, whose name is Elizabeth, and Bill's wife's name is Elizabeth. And I said, oh, we're going out for our 7th wedding anniversary. We're going to this hotel, this restaurant at this hotel downtown. He said, oh, send me a picture. And I did. And he just writes back, you're probably the cutest couple in America. And it's just, it's just a wonderful experience to get to work with someone and then have them, kind of reach into your life like that.
Bill Shatner wrote that to you. I just want you. Yeah, I'm sure that was surreal at the time, but yeah, that's pretty amazing. So we have a question from someone, and I know you talked a little bit about this. You touched on saying that going to space is no joke. Like it is hard on the body, is hard on the psyche. So someone wanted to ask, and we could do a whole thing on this, but what did it take? What kind of training did you need to go into space?
So I'm in New York City, getting ready to go to Texas, where the rocket was, and I'm with my songwriter team, and we say, well, we gotta write a song. So we start jotting down notes. Now I get Monday morning, I'm in Texas, and I'm like, the ranches are like, the rocket is at a place about 4,500 feet, and there's nobody else there. It's just me and some of the crew. Why am I here? Oh, just you got used to it, and And then later in the day, they said, let's go to the gantry. And I said, okay, let's go to the gantry. So they drive 20 miles and we go to the gantry. And they said, well, let's go up in the gantry and see what you can. I don't want to go up the gantry. It's 4,000. Okay. It's 11 flights up the stairs. I go up the first 3 flights, and I'm sucking in air, and yeah, look at that. Let me see. Look at let me take a look at the scenery for, and I go up another 3 and another. And finally, I'm at the top. Oh, that's good. And I'm looking at a room, like 30 by 30 room with this thick concrete wall. What's that? Well, that's just a safety room. What do you mean a safety? Well, in case something goes wrong, you run into there and close the door. I said, what do you mean? What's going to go wrong? So I come down the gantry and I'm thinking, why am I here? And I was there a day early, I finally realized, for them to see if I could make it up the 11 flights of the gantry. Now, why they didn't have an elevator, like you see carrying your helmet, you get in an elevator. You walked up 11 flights at 5,000 feet. So I did it. I was able to do it, but I think I had to prove to them that I could do it. Otherwise, what would they do? The thing that was overwhelming to me was the vision of the Zeppelin, the Hindenburg. They filled the Hindenburg with hydrogen. Okay, and then if you know the story, here comes this 300 foot length dirigible, and it comes to New Jersey, and they get it down and they tie off the mooring line like it's like a ship. They tie down the mooring line. What they don't know is that static electricity went up the mooring line, and they had anodized the skin of the Hindenburg. So it was like an aluminum, it was metallic skin. And they surmise the electric spark went across this metal thing, and way at that end, there was some small leakage in the bags that held the hydrogen gas. Boom. And then there was that terrible thing where so many people lost their lives. So I get the next day, they're taking us to the rocket and they're filling it with hydrogen. And I'm thinking, that's not a good sign. And then when we're halfway through the countdown, somebody on the loudspeaker says, hold it, T-7, hold the countdown. There's an allele. An allele. What's an allele?
Google.
Well, an allele is something that doesn't belong there. An allele. Hydrogen and an allele. They don't go together. They're not musical. There's no harmony. And then the countdown went on. Okay, no allele, and then blast off. So that was my experience there. Now, your question was something I was about to answer.
Oh, well, no, that was fascinating. Don't worry. I mean, your answer is better than the question, but it was, what was the training? But I'm sure you went through medical
So the
tests.
training was getting up the 11 flights. That was my training. Okay.
He's good. Let him in.
He's good. Let him go. Let him sleep now. We'll give him a lift back. Can you get down? And if you can, stay there a couple of days because we'll be with you.
Oh, so amazing. Now, I mean, be honest though, when you finished that, were you exhausted? Is it painful? Did you
So you have
feel
to
any?
understand, I was dealing with an unknown emotion. I didn't know when I stepped out of the rocket and I'm crying And I'm thinking, what the devil? I mean, God, there's cameras, and I'm weeping uncontrollably, and I don't know why. It took me there, shaking champagne, and they're doing that, and I went into a corner and thought, what the hell's that? Wait a minute, I'm feeling grief. I'm feeling grief for the planet, and that was the next step.
So in this book, and I'm going to go back to some questions. People have been submitting questions for quite a while, so I'm going to try to get to them. You are a born storyteller. So thank you for all the books you have written, and thank you for all of the acting you've done for us. You're a treasure to us. You do mention, along with learning, your love of books. So being that we are a library, someone asked, what are your favorite genres and what have you recently read? You can't say your own books.
So I'm sitting here, all right. I'm sitting here this whole day from 5 o'clock this morning to it's 5:30. So it's 12, it would be, it'll be 13 hours doing publicity with a break in between. And so in that break in between, I went to Kindle and I looked up what was for sale on Kindle just because I like to buy books. So I've got The Meaning of Human Existence by Edward Wilson. Do you know Edward Wilson? Great. Lakes and Their Birth, Life, and Death. Surprise, Kill, Vanish, The Secret History of the CIA Paramilitary. Catch and Kill, Lies, Spies, and a Conspiracy to Protect, PRED, I don't know what that is. And so the list goes on. I just bought them today. I can't wait to get at them. Blood and Ink. I bought this the other day. The Scandalous Jazz Age Double Murder. The Social Lives of Animals. Consciousness and the Universe. Quantum Physics. Panic in Level 4. Cannibals, Killer Viruses, and Other JOU journals or something. So you can see there's no continuity. It's just, wow, what a dazzling title that is. I'd like to know more about lakes, their birth, existence, and their death. Lakes. Whoever thought of that?
Well, someone wrote a book about it, and now
And I'm going to read it.
Bestsellers. Now, let's be clear, Joshua. I think I came up with your second idea. Oprah and Reese have their book clubs and their book recommendations. I would totally be a part of the William Shatner book list recommendations.
Well,
That's pretty good.
there was an attempt a while ago, a couple of years ago. Somebody put together a book club. They wanted me in it, and I was willing to do it. Like I would read a couple of books a month or something like that, which I would have done that in a week, and be a paid member of a book club and discuss books, which would have been fantastic. It didn't go through.
Well, there's still time.
Yep.
Here's another question that just came up. This is going to be a big one. I don't know how you're going to narrow this down, but in your travels, can you name one of your favorite places and why?
I did a show that lasted 2 years and contained some wonderful guys. No girls, just 4 wonderful guys. I traveled in many places of the world, and we just ad-libbed our way. We wrote the script on the come. They'd put we'd be in Sweden, and they'd put a can of fermented fish in front of us. All right, now what are you going to do? So, they didn't tell us if you open this fermented fish, it explodes, because the Swedes put it underwater and open the fermented fish underwater. It's apparently a delicacy. But Limburger cheese, when I say that, do you know what I mean? Okay, so it smells beyond belief, but it doesn't taste the way it smells. There's a sizzle to it, right? I mean, it like tickles your taste buds because there's so much bacterial motion going on. So that's what the fermented fish was. So I looked at Terry Bradshaw, and he looked at me, and he knew what I was going to do because I had a piece of the fermented fish in my hand. And he gets up and he starts to run away. Prior to that, we got like 5 cameras on us, and we're at a table. And this camera is taking somebody there, and this camera's on me. This this uh, this line of the camera is somehow intersecting with this, so we can see a bit of the cameraman here. And when I open the can of fish and the scent, this camera operator turns so we see him on this camera and projectile vomits. That's how bad it was. I'm looking at Terry Bradshaw, the great quarterback, the great athlete of a few years ago. His knees have gone, which I took full advantage of. And he got up and started running, and I ran after him. And then he cut sharp like a quarterback would, and he came out of his shoes and he fell down, and I jumped on him, and I smeared fermented fish all over his bald pate. So he says now the worst thing that has ever happened to him is me running him down, is Shatner running me down. This great athlete is wild. So we had this show in which we went many places in the world. I ended up in Lithuania, in Vilnius, Lithuania, where my great grandmother was born, and in fact took a trip out beyond Vilnius to the villages where she was born, and the Nazis had destroyed Vilnius and the surrounding country, but the old farmers market was now a park, but it was still there. And there was a tap, it was a well, and there was a single pipe and a tap. And I'm of the opinion, I'd like to think it's such a romantic idea, that water retains the memory. There's a theory that water, that, for example, apparently it's been proven, meditators, a number, 20, 30 meditators in Washington, D.C., all meditated on the crime rate. And for a while, the crime rate went down. And so meditators are of the opinion that what they think with enough authority can happen. So the idea is whatever's like so dramatic and so violent, that water retains that emotion. And I like to believe that because it's fun. So I turned the tap on in this 400-year-old village, and I washed my face with the water that came from a deep well that maybe my grandmother washed her vegetables at the farmer's market when she bought them so many years ago. Vilnius is a great place. But Thailand is better.
So I see what you're doing here. You're going to one up every one of your travel spots. I don't know that I could choose. Do you feel like every spot has its own mystique or its own story related to it? Is it more about the place or the experience you had when you were there?
Oh, it's the experience you have when you're there. I mean, you could go to the most beautiful, you go to New York. Yeah, I'm in New York, and it's terrible. It's cold. It's unfriendly. You have to have an experience in the place you go to. The I got into the ring with George Foreman in Thailand, boxed with George Foreman, had some of the Thai food in the great restaurant. Those beautiful women in Thai ladies are gorgeous. They're gorgeous people, great beauties. So the whole country is mystical, it's built on mystery. Myanmar, Burma, Thailand, all those countries are just, there's such a religious ferocity there that marks, hello, dog. Um, uh, fantastic. Tokyo. You've been to Tokyo?
I have not.
Wow, it's so bright. It's so busy. It's so. Do you like Japanese food?
I do.
Great Japanese food in
I have
Japan.
a big bucket list of travel places because yes, I feel like the culture, the food, and getting past the being the tourist, right? To go get into the country and actually enjoy it. Um,
Well, that means you got to stay there a while. You got to make
right.
friends. Language difficulties are difficult. You need an interpreter, maybe.
So are
You know,
those your dogs
my
barking?
best place, my best place,
Best place.
my home. I'm so glad to come home. I'm home. My dog is barking. Yes, bark, baby.
Duffy, I'd be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to explore briefly another connection. When Bill and I talk about entanglement and we don't know that we're connected to each other, Bill and I have talked about my mother going to McGill and growing up in Montreal. Bill, I don't think I've ever told you, she was born in Vilnius.
No.
Yes.
What?
Now that's creepy. You got to stay away from me, kid, because no kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
That's
post-war, and it wasn't as
well, it's less of a coincidence when you think about it, because a lot of people were leaving Lithuania at the turn of the century, my father being one of them, and at the turn of the 20th century. So around 1910, 15, a lot of people came on these boats to Montreal in order to go to the States. So they stopped at Montreal as a stopping place, and now they were going to arrange to go to New York or places where they knew. And they never went to New York. They stayed in Canada because it's such a wonderful country. And they saw, wow, let's stay here. So there were a lot of people coming from Eastern Europe at that turn of the century, made their way to Canada by way of the port, the first port. Uh, well, not the first, I guess, Nova Scotia and all, but the first major port is Montreal down the St. Lawrence River.
So your relatives could have perhaps met way back when.
yeah, they could have.
I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, the community that they belonged to was very small,
Yeah.
and they must have known each other in some manner. I mean, it was
Yeah,
hard.
Bill and I are both Jewish, and of course that's one of the reasons so many of them left. And my
I feel
mother's
it quick.
family, my mother's family survived the Holocaust, and those that were left went from Vilnius very briefly to Poland, where it wasn't much fun either, and then made their way to Canada. So yeah, similar sort of story,
Oh my
and another
goodness.
connection.
Wow. Tell me she's written a book or written down what she can, because that's just...
Well, it's funny you ask, and I don't mean to take the spotlight or anything, but Bill did a thing called Story File, where he programmed for 5 days questions and answers in 3D, so that years from now people can still ask questions.
And
Yeah,
AI.
that's right. And it started as a program to get Holocaust survivors on film. And my grandmother participated in a very, very not an AI version. This is 20 years ago when she was still alive. Participated in just like a Q&A on camera, but she didn't want to talk a lot about it, so we don't know that many of the stories. But that's why it's so incredible that with technology now we can ask those questions for years to come.
It's so important to get those stories. I think the world is carried by stories, and if we don't, put them down in some form, they get lost, and we can't lose those stories.
There is a beautiful story talking about putting things down, and especially in artificial intelligence, which allows you some flexibility. A young man loses his fiancée. She dies, and he's bereft, and he's so in grief. And by the way, I've been doing a little studying about grief, and it's a very real thing. It's like, it's as real as a cancer. It's real. Um, so he's so in grief that he can't get out of bed. He gets to leave the room, and he can't. And somebody, and I don't know the circumstances. They bring him a bot, a robot that listens to you. You can like a recording machine, but it looks like a bot. And then he says, I don't know, Jeannie, you remember when we went down to the seashore and we made love, and then the day later he says, what do you remember anything about the seashore? And the bot says, you remember the seashore we went down and we made love? He says, yes. And he begins to expedite, he begins to talk about his grief, expiate his grief to the bot. So the bot's learning about the grief and about his experience with his fiancée. So when he asks the bot a question, it feeds back what he's been. So over a period of a couple of years, he's got somebody, she's alive. She's answering him. She's responding to his experience. And he gets better.
Interesting.
It's
We
like
have
Black
another
Mirror,
question.
but with a nice ending.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a happy ending.
It's a happy ending as opposed to one of those sci-fi shows where they do that and then the guy gets consumed by his grief.
But
Actually,
TalkBot, right?
yeah, it's a
Eat
nice
your
version.
larynx, right?
So we have another question. We're switching gears a little bit. This person says, Marie says, I would like to know, out of all the characters you have played, this is another tough one, which was your favorite to play? So which role really did you enjoy inhabiting the most?
I don't think, my mind doesn't think that way. Like talking to you is as good a thing as I've ever done. But I did do a one-man show on Broadway, and it got great reviews, and I ran the time we had booked, and then went on tour, and I toured a lot all over the United States on this one-man show. So I wrote and essentially directed the one-man show. And I was able to hold an audience by talking to them for an hour and a half to 2 hours by myself. No dancing girls, no music, no nothing. Just listen to this. I got something to tell you. And it was very successful. So, maybe that. What I just did at Kennedy Center was enormous reaction. Everybody was weeping, and the reaction was tears. It was so good. And out of that will come some good shows.
Bill, can I can't miss an opportunity to ask if you want to tell the story of opening night on Broadway.
Well, so, I had toured in a version of what I was doing in Canada. And then somebody said, the theater's open, would you like to come to Broadway? I said, great, but I got to rewrite the whole, so I rewrote the whole thing. And so it's absolutely mostly new material. And I'm working with a chair. The chair becomes a horse, becomes a motorcycle, but the chair becomes a prop that I haven't really worked out. So I'm looking that evening, I'm thinking, my God, opening night tomorrow, and I don't even know what I'm doing, and I'm in front of a Broadway with all the critics, and so my wife and I and a friend were going to dinner, and I was like, I got to be careful of what I eat here because I want to be an absolute, and so I was very careful of what I ate, and we got the next morning, I am sick to my stomach. I've got food poisoning, and I can't leave the toilet. Everything's coming out every which way. And Dr. Oz and the other guy from CBS is taking care of me. My kidneys are failing. I'm losing so many fluids, pouring fluids in me, and they're gonna get me to the theater. And Dr. Oz is backstage with me. He became a buddy after that. And I'm gonna go on. I'm going on, and I'm on. And da bing, da bang, da bing. Oh my God! There's been a technical difficulty. I'll be right back. Leave the stage. I run up to my dressing room and I shower and I get back into my pants. And so, opening night, I crapped in my pants.
But nobody
other
knew.
people have
Nobody
many
knew.
other people,
Nobody knew.
many other people have probably done that for very different reasons.
Right. Right.
Joshua, what a good friend you are to let him share that with all of his closest friends right here and now.
But I bring it up not just because it's entertaining that Bill crapped his pants, but because in his life he's never missed a performance. He's always on time. He's always well read on all of his work. Like I take so much inspiration from that, and that anybody else might have gone, you know what? I've got food poisoning. I'm going to have to postpone. He's like, no, I'm going on. Craps his pants, comes right back. I mean, that's to me, that's incredible.
That is, the show must go on. And
Absolutely.
Joshua, you have dealt with actors and obviously other people on film sets and TV shows and everything else. How much, and you've kind of talked about it, how much does preparation matter? Even if it's, it's if he walked on the stage or if he walked onto a set, of course, everyone's going to, revere him and everything else. What does it mean when someone who, by all accounts, could, be late to the set or phone in? What does it mean to the director and the rest of the people on the set when the actors show up prepared and engaged and everything else?
Well, it's everything. I mean, because and if you're somebody like Bill, invariably you're the man of the most stature there, and it flows down to everybody else. You can't expect third fiddle to be doing their job if the person up front isn't doing it. They set the tone for everybody, and you as the director, as a producer, as another actor, you have to be just as engaged. And I think there was talk when Bill did the 4 episodes on Haven. I remember there was a call to the office from Bill's assistant, Kathleen, an amazing person, who said, hi, we just wanted to see, are there any revisions coming out for the next 2 scripts in the next day or so? And we said, no, might be a couple of line tweaks, but not that we imagine any reason you ask. And Kathleen said, well, Bill's already learned them, and he just wanted to make sure that he was ahead of any changes. So when he showed up in the absolute freezing cold of a converted hockey rink in Nova Scotia, everybody was on their A game, because if he was bringing it at 84, 85, however old he was then, you better bring it too. So yeah, it filters down, it's critical, and it's wonderful to be involved with someone who's always bringing their A game.
Okay, so you touched on a word that, and he's used it before too, ad lib. So one of the questions that someone sent in earlier this week was, Mr. Shatner, how much did you ad lib in your pivotal speeches as Captain Kirk? The speeches were legendary. We could all watch them again. How much was that ad lib?
No ad lib. No ad lib. They were written down, honed. I mean, there were some wonderful writers there, both the original people, the great science fiction writers who might have written the story, and then wonderful group of television writers whose sole purpose in life was to write a good script. So how dare I, somebody who's pondered, should I say boldly go or go boldly? I don't know. And they think it out, and does the adverb condition the adjective, the verb, or what? And so I would do it as best I could, every word.
Wow, that's impressive, and I'm sure the writers appreciated that too. All right, we have some more questions here. Oh, this is okay. This can lead us down a rabbit hole. If you were never cast as Captain Kirk, where do you think you'd be now, and how do you think your life would have played out? The what ifs of life.
Well, I really can't answer that, but I can tell you what was taking place. So I did the first um, pilot of Star Trek didn't sell. They didn't like it. It was then, but they liked the concept enough, they being NBC, that they asked for something I've never heard of before or since, or another pilot. Let's use that idea, recast it, do everything. We just want another shot at it. So they called me, and I was in New York doing something other. And Roddenberry, can you come to Los Angeles to take a look at the pilot? So I go see the pilot with the idea of playing the captain. So I go see the pilot, and it's really interesting. So I agreed to do another pilot. So I do another pilot. So now it takes like a year. And by that time, I've forgotten I've done the pilot, or, it's not central in my head. And a great playwright, Norman Corwin, has written a play for me. And the University of Utah had a campaign then, had a program then, that they would do a world premiere of a new play as long as they had the world premiere rights, and then they would pay for it, I guess, and just as long as they had the rights to open it as a new play, that's all they wanted. So Corwin brought the play to them, and they said, "That's great." So we all went to Salt Lake City at the University of Utah and put on this gorgeous poetic play that I had said to the English professor there. I said, "You got to come and see it, because there are passages here that are the equal of Shakespeare." He said, "Oh, come on. No. So he sees it. He comes backstage after opening night. He says, "It's like Shakespeare. It was like that beautiful poetry that was so powerful." And now we're on our way to Broadway. Oh, the phone rings. Yeah. Okay, Star Trek, the series you did, it's sold. But I'm on my way to Broadway. Sorry, you got a prior contract.
Wow. So on that
What
note,
would have happened? I don't know. What would have happened? Maybe that play would have been a smash.
well, you would have been a star on Broadway.
I would have been I was a star
Well,
on
you've
Broadway.
done both now.
Yeah, no, I had been. I had
Right.
been starring on Broadway in a big hit play that went 2 years. So I was quite popular
Right.
during big movies and Broadway and live television. I was going along pretty good. And then this ridiculous thing happened.
What is your favorite medium? I mean, what is your favorite? Broadway, TV? I mean, I'm sure they all have their pluses and minuses.
Yes. Yes. They're all uh, acting, performing. I am beginning to hate the word acting. It sounds like something phony. I'm striving not to act. When you see a baby on the floor and you put your camera on it, look at this cute baby, look at it. And you can't keep your eye off the baby because the baby's totally unconscious of the camera and it's doing its own thing. It's totally immersed in here. And that's acting.
Mm, very true. All right.
Can I just say one extra thing as well? Because Bill has opened my mind to these synchronicities.
Okay.
am I
Let's see.
talking over you?
Starring writer. Sorry.
Oh, that's
Josh,
the
you
question
go.
I was going to answer. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's good. So you're watching it too.
That's
That's
crazy.
what I was going to give to you.
I'm watching them come in. Okay, this is
How are
crazy.
you watching them come in?
Oh, I've got the chat window open here.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. The vibration, all of that sort of stuff. Bill mentioned the original Star Trek pilot that didn't go, the Cage, and then the one he was brought in for, Where No Man Has Gone Before. I came along to Bill's appearance at the Star Trek convention in Las Vegas. And, he had a whole crowd in rapturous attention. And as I was leaving to go back to the airport, I got word that my flight was delayed a little bit. So I wandered into the dealer room and said, what can I see here? I don't need tchotchkes, but I love learning. And someone asked, what type of advice would you offer an aspiring writer? And the answer is read scripts. Just read as much as you can. And the two that I picked up, that were the only two this guy had left, and just happened to be on my desk because I haven't put them away. The Cage and where no man has gone before. I mean, what's going on?
Well,
Oh, that's great. Okay, and I think we're up for questions. I have another one though, because apparent people were dying to ask you things. We're running out of time, but you mentioned Mr. Roddenberry. This gentleman said, "My dad was a Pan American pilot and always looked up to Gene Roddenberry. What is
okay.
your favorite memory of Mr. Roddenberry?"
Gene was a very complex guy.
Mhm.
He and his wife were not, they weren't rich at that point in time. They became very, very rich. But at that point in time, their money was hard. So they were doing everything they could to make a little money on the side. And so he came to me and he had a pin. So it was indigenous to something. They said, I want you to wear this pin. And I said, well, why? What's a pin? He said, well, we'll sell the pin. We can sell the pin. It becomes a I said, Gene, I'm not going to wear something you're going to sell. I don't want to do that. And so I refused to do it, which upset him. And I don't remember what happened subsequent to that, but I remember him vividly looking at me and saying, "You got to wear it," and I'm saying, "I'm not going to wear it." And so it was a standoffish moment.
You won.
Nobody won. He had no dearth of things to sell eventually.
Oh, yep, yep. You have to deal with that. Well, you know what? We are now at 8:59. I think we said we would go till 9 o'clock. Am I correct?
I have to go. Yes, it's 9
Okay.
o'clock, 6 o'clock our time. I have things to do. And
Well, you have to get some rest. You're doing the same thing tomorrow. I cannot thank you enough, though, both of you. This has been an incredible, incredible
wonderful.
conversation. And for everyone who has not finished it yet, this is just too much fun to read. Again, oh,
Bring it
blur.
closer to your face. It's blurred for some reason. Further back.
That's
Wow,
worse.
that's crazy. Tilt it down.
Yeah, I got mine.
Tilt it.
There you go. Both.
There you go. That's the book.
You'd think I'd never been on TV before. Thank you
It's
so
Zoom.
much.
It doesn't.
Thank you,
And,
everybody.
Thank you.
I can't wait to hear what you do next, both of you.
And thank you to your audience. Thank you for being there. It was a pleasure to answer some of your questions.
And
All
I
right,
put this
until
in the
next
chat.
time.
I put my Twitter handle in the chat. If there's anything you didn't get a chance to ask, please let me know and I'll do my best to get an answer for you.
Perfect. And we can't wait to see all of the things you're doing as well, Joshua. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. Have a great night.
Bye-bye, everybody.